And good morning, everyone. Welcome to KETIV's Autodesk Virtual Academy. I'm Nigel Ambayec, and today I'm joined by Jorge Fernandez. And today we're going to be going over something a little different today. So Autodesk Learning Resources with our new motto, Never Stop Learning. And some may wonder why we're going about doing this session. Well, as you noted in the poll earlier, for those who were here for that, everyone's got a different style of learning. It looked like we had about half of the people who really enjoyed self-paced tutorials, and then another half kind of enjoying some of those face-to-face in-class scenarios. Autodesk does have resources to learn their products both ways, either from us or Autodesk themselves. So today we're going to go over a couple of those resources as well as give you a couple of demos from such courses. So make sure you stick around for that. Okay. All right. Great. So yeah, just like Nigel said, to kind of give you a little more about what different topics or resources we're going to talk about, we're going to go over some of the key topics that we thought, or not thought, but that we found were most beneficial to people from the Virtual Academy, AVA, and then there's a new one from Autodesk actually called the Autodesk Design Academy. So we'll be going over how to navigate through there, how you can get through some of the different tutorials, and especially depending on what level you're on. And then we'll go over the comprehensive training of the face-to-face training, some of the different things, topics, and methods we can do that as well. So we'll go over all three of these different ones, and I'll go ahead and get started by talking a little bit more about Virtual Academy. You know, as of course most of you are on here, right? So hopefully you've attended some of our classrooms before, but we decided to pick three of the most attended webinars where we had the most interaction and so forth. And so those are bill of materials, iLogic, and bulk copy design. So we're not going to do the full session on those, but just a few key takeaways from each of those sessions. Definitely, just in case you missed out, or have joined us since then. I know the iLogic one was a few months ago, so we do have a lot of new people.
Right, and then again, don't forget these are recorded, right? Just like this one is. All of these are on our KETIV playlist for KETIV Virtual Academy on YouTube. You just type in KETIV in YouTube and you'll find that there. And we're always happy to give you the link after this as well if you need to.
Definitely.
So the first thing we'll go over is the bill of materials. I think the key takeaway here was that when you're working inside of an assembly, there's these different BOM structure types to choose from. Not sure if you've all noticed it, but if you go to the Manage tab and under Bill of Materials, you'll notice that you can change the type of bill of materials that this part is. And so just to kind of give you a brief overview of what they are, normal basically means that this part will be your average part. It's included in the parts list. You'll actually see it in the quantity of the parts list. Purchase is not just because it's a purchase part period, but it's also because a lot of times a purchase part might be an assembly. You know, kind of like the image you see at the bottom of the screen here, where you have like a piston, right? There's different components to it, but when you purchase it, you don't need every single line item necessarily. You just need the top level line item, and that's what you want to see in your bill of materials. So that's what purchased means. Reference is something that really is a reference, such as the iMic that you see here that we got off of cbliss.com, by the way. If you ever need something like that, cbliss.com has a lot of great standard content. And these types of components will be excluded from the bill of materials, and it also will not be included in the mass quantity of the entire assembly because, again, it's just there for reference, right? And then there's phantom, and this one here means that it is included in the mass, and the components are going to show up in the bill of materials. What this means is if a subassembly is a phantom subassembly, the subassembly itself won't show up as a line item, but the parts underneath will. You know, take for example using bolted connection inside of Inventor, where you have an actual set, a bolt, a nut, a washer, like the image you see on screen. Then that is going to allow it so that you don't see that subassembly, but you do see the actual parts list. And finally, inseparable, and this basically means a weldment. Anything that, you know, if it's physically put together, welded together, and you need to make a change to it, you're going to have to basically break it or damage it, or drastically change it, or take out the entire subassembly, if you will, to make a change to it. Inseparable basically is like a weldment. So I think that was one of the key takeaways from that bill of materials session. But of course, it is recorded and is available on YouTube if you need to access that. The next thing we'll go into is iLogic. And I'm going to go ahead and just show you live a key takeaway from there. I'm going to do something from scratch, nothing baked here. I'm going to show you some of the key functionality inside of iLogic. So in here, I'm going to create something real basic. I'm just going to say a tabletop, for example. I'll just use this quick tool here, using the box primitive to kind of get this going. And what iLogic is going to allow you to do is start to use parameters that you have in order to make this more intelligent. For example, here, if I want to give this the length, I'll say this is 1, or we'll say 2 feet, for example. By the way, notice a quick tip for you there, if you haven't used parameters in this fashion before, is you can type in the name of the parameter, type in equals, and then the value, and that will go ahead and rename the parameter instead of D0, D1, D2, etc. And then for the width, I'll just type in width equals, we'll say 1 foot. Enter. And we'll call this last one thickness equals, we'll say 0.5. Without getting into the materials or anything yet, what this is going to allow, iLogic is going to allow you to do is say, well, I want to take those parameters and drive those parameters, right? So in order to do that, you want to bring up the iLogic browser, and I'll just kind of show you how we do that here. By default, it's usually not on. Under the View tab and User Interface, you'll see iLogic browser. That'll bring this up, and there's different rules we can create. Where, for example, if we type in material in the parameter list, it'll actually assign that material for us. Or maybe you want it to automatically save a step file of this every time you hit save. So there's a lot of different rules. The one that I think is pretty neat here is maybe if we wanted to use this as a template, we can create a form for this and be able to say, well, I want to take that length parameter, that width parameter, and that thickness parameter, and be able to just type in those values, making it kind of like a table-driven part, similar to an I part. Here I can tell it what I want the actual label to show up as. I can also come in here and change its appearance a little bit. Maybe I want to add it into a different tab, different rows, add pictures of the actual component itself so we can see it a little more clearly what it is we're actually working on. If we just keep it as simple as it is right now, by simply clicking OK, I can now click on this form under iLogic and be able to say, well, you know what, now I want this length to be 3 feet instead. I go to the width and I want this to be 2 feet instead, and instantaneously I'm able to see these updates happen on the fly. So this can then be saved as a, maybe as a template, for example. I can go to Save As, Save Copy as Template, and now I can reuse this over and over again. I could have even had a field there that fills in the part number or the description or different things like that. So this is really only the beginning, skimming the surface, but at its most basic, essential level, that's some of the capabilities you can do inside of here. Again, we actually had 2 iLogic classes, right, Nigel?
Yeah, we have.
So, check those out. If you have more questions, of course, feel free to reach out.
Definitely.
I wanted to touch on one for Vault as well. One of the big things we've always had questions with, I think even in the support, I think Nigel would agree, would be Vault copy design, which allows you to basically take it into actual design. Instead of copying the entire thing and having a complete duplication of everything, we can select what we want to use. Maybe what we want to replace, what we want to exclude. Make sure we take the drawings along for the ride as well, and make sure we don't have duplication. So the way it works here, I'll give you a quick example, is let's say I had this design of industrial machine that maybe I needed to change the servo motors on from a horizontal placement to vertical. So what I can do is I can take this already released design and be able to say, well, let's make a copy of it. And when we make this copy, we'll be able to say we want to do that, or we can say where we want to copy it to, maybe a specific folder if we want to, maybe for R&D purposes or something like that. But you have a lot more options than just that. You can actually go to a part and be able to say, well, I want to actually replace this with a different one, the plate that's actually going to put this vertically, let's say. So we can then navigate through the different folder structures here and quickly get to the part that we need to replace this with. This 122, for example. We notice it says replaced here. And then on the right-hand side, we can find out what exactly is going on, all the different actions. So what files are going to be copied? In this case, it's just the assembly. Oops. In this case, it's just the assembly. I can see what's going to be reused, so we're not making duplicates of any of these parts. We're completely reusing them all over again. What components are we actually going to replace? We'll see that here as well. And even when I go back to copy, I can see its destination and everything. Or if I prefer to actually see the folder structure, if I'm going to put it somewhere else, I can actually see that over here, so I can preview it, if you will. We also have the numbering scheme, so if there's a brand new copy of the file, we can then type in the naming scheme in here. If there's a prefix or a suffix for us, for example, then we can also fill that information in here and finally be able to create this copy and not have to affect the original necessarily. So that's copy design, you know, and again, in its most basic form. I think again we had a couple sessions on this actually, one from Autodesk and one from us.
Yep, we did have an Autodesk. One of our Autodesk friends go ahead and help us with that session. That was, I want to say, a few months ago, but that recording is available.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we're going to have Nigel show you a little more about Autodesk Design Academy and the new tools Autodesk has given us in order for us to, you know, make sure we are able to continue growing, right? Grow our learning. Make sure that if you have a new user or something like that, that they can take advantage of some of the resources in order to, you know, advance their knowledge.
Yep. So definitely, thank you, Jorge, for passing it on. So the Autodesk Design Academy is a completely new tool available from Autodesk themselves. It's kind of a learning tool, very similar to AVA that you're watching right now, but instead this is kind of catered to working on your own time. So instead of, you know, watching us every week at 10 o'clock on Thursdays, you know, say you had half an hour here, half an hour there, you can go through some of the Autodesk Design Academy tools. I'm going to go ahead and click this hyperlink here and go to the website. Bear with me a moment. So this is the general Autodesk Design Academy website. Also, just to let you guys know, if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Completely forgot to say that at the beginning, but it's fine. So this is the Autodesk Design Academy website. As you can see, it's academy.autodesk.com. Pretty easy to remember. And what this is, it's a tool that helps you learn at your own pace. I definitely understand, and from personal experience, that, you know, even I learn at my own pace. I'm sometimes, based on the product, a little bit slower, sometimes a little bit faster than some tutorials. So what this does is it allows you to work at your own pace and do standard tutorials to learn new products, or even, you know, get better at the products you already do know. So in this Learn tab here, right here at the top, if you do click through here, you go to this page right here. Let's just forego the loading. Where'd everything go? Bear with me a moment. Just gotta load this guy up. Perfect. So here are a couple of the few sessions that are available via the Design Academy. Like I said, they're not live, so you don't necessarily get to ask questions, interact one-on-one with an instructor like us, but instead, you know, you kind of work at your own pace. So for example, say you wanted to learn some visualization in Inventor and AutoCAD. This session's available to you. You know, it's got six different lessons, and this is the approximate time it'll take to do so, about 2.5 hours. Users like yourselves are taking this. They're rating these lessons to a 5, and the best thing is, you know, they're free for you to use. If you're a student, you know, you can just sign up for an Autodesk account, go that way, or if you already have, you know, some Autodesk software, you already do have an Autodesk account, just sign in, and you're free to go out any of these tutorials. Also, there's, in this tab right here, portfolios, you can share a bunch of your projects with people on the Design Academy, you know, kind of get feedback, kind of see what's going on with other people's workflows as well. This is my favorite tab right here, this Product How-To tab. And as you can see, you have products ranging from Max all the way to Format 360, everything in between. If you wanted to, you know, do 2D design in AutoCAD, or if you wanted to even go into some like crazier model rendering in Maya, all available to you here. For example, say you wanted to learn Inventor, we'll go ahead and click through. And here's the great part here, is there are lessons ranging from beginner levels of knowledge to even your advanced levels of knowledge. As you can see, the videos are approximately anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes long, depending on the complexity, and they show you different things. As you can see, it shows you how to, you know, original sketching, how to create part features. Then you get into advanced things such as sheet metal, so you can do some presentations, you can do sheet metal, and even stuff in the middle. This is available for all of those different products, so definitely take advantage of some of these free resources. I understand that some of these do overlap with the ones that we have, but there are definitely ones here that we haven't gotten to yet, and there's ones that we've gotten to that they haven't gotten to yet. So you can get the full encompassing of the entire Inventor tools by some combination of both. So let's go ahead and move on. And I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go on to the next slide. And I think Jorge is going to take over from here.
Yeah, I'll take over. Actually, I'll add a couple things to what Nigel was saying. It literally just reminded me that there's a couple other resources that can come in handy. So for those of you that are using simulation, for example, there is simhub.autodesk.com. You'll see some of the different things here as far as like demos, but also there's something called Simulation TV that shows you some getting started things for, let's say you want to do a drop test analysis and you already have the simulation software. It'll give you some tips and tricks and best practices there, just a little overview. So just another way, and then there are some learning tools in here as well. And if I were to go to YouTube, I personally, a lot of times will actually look for Rob Cohey. He's an evangelist from Autodesk. He has a lot of things ranging from quick tips, 3-minute tips, to these like Inventor fundamentals classes, for example, where he even goes into frame generator and things like that. And there's even other ones where he interviews customers and goes over some what's new things. So I thought I'd just kind of bring that up really quick. Some other nice areas to be able to get some more information for you.
Yep. And that's predominantly how I learn, is I watch Rob's videos.
Yeah. So now we'll go over. So for those of you, we saw the polls that a lot of you actually like the one-on-one training or face-to-face training, and some of you even also on the live go-to-meeting type training. So we realize this, and there's always been and will be the traditional training. For example, just basic Inventor, basic AutoCAD, electrical, P&ID. That'll never go away. It'll always be there. But we've definitely noticed that a lot more people are saying, well, I might learn the basics of sheet metal in the class, but I need to learn how I need to adapt to it. How am I going to actually get back to my office and start using it? So that's what KETIV has actually done now, is now have a full catalog of different courses. I can definitely go over it here, or actually maybe Nigel, you can copy and paste this into the chat for everybody if they wish to view it. But we'll go over just a few quick sneak peeks, I guess, if you will, of what type of training we would cover. So if I go over into Inventor and take a look at sheet metal, everyone does it a little bit differently, right? So you might be an actual sheet metal fabricator. You might just incorporate it into a design. For example, here, if I needed to place this into an assembly, a lot of times you might have the components where you want them to be already, either because of wiring or because of real estate and heating components and thermal things that are going on. There's a lot of different ways to look at this, right? But even when using sheet metal, one of the very basic things is, well, that's great. Let's place everything where we want, but how do we connect it all together? And we can use things like the bend tool to be able to quickly just select these two edges and be able to either cut into the material or have it come out. We can actually extend one side or the other. In this case, I'll just have it come down, for example, to very quickly and easily be able to start getting a sheet metal pattern out of this. I can continue selecting on all these different ones, for example, and be able to, again, very quickly and easily be able to put these bends in. Maybe we decide this is a full radius instead, or it is a 90 degree, or we wanted to flip the fixed edge, for example. So we have a lot of different capabilities inside of here that you can take advantage of to be able to get your sheet metal part.
Thanks, Jorge, for that little tidbit on sheet metal. Now we're going to jump into the next course, which is Inventor Update Training.
So every year there are new capabilities in Autodesk Inventor. For one, there are things such as last week where we did some collaborative work with A360 in the cloud. There's other things such as 3D PDF, which happens to be my favorite thing. For those of you who came last week, you probably have seen this assembly. If you looked at the email that I sent you for the design share, I know a couple of you I've joined on with for that. But I'd like to show you a cool new feature too as well. So in Inventor 2017, there's this cool thing called 3D PDF, and it is as it sounds. Normal PDFs kind of are two-dimensional, obviously, but we've got 3D PDFs now, and I'm going to show you how that all works. Essentially, if you want to go into File and export anything, it could be a part, it could be assembly as a 3D PDF file, you have some options. This is a new thing for Inventor 2017. If you haven't used it yet, I definitely encourage you to do so. It's one of my favorite things. So you can include things like all of these properties of the particular assembly or part that you have. You can also include different view representations. So say, for example, you have different view reps for different configurations of your assembly, or different positional reps, things like that. You can take all of this over into a 3D PDF. Obviously, this is just your standard, where am I going to put this, and then view PDF when finished. If you want to publish this, what it does, it takes a couple of minutes and publishes a 3D PDF of this. I'm not going to actually publish this. It's going to take a while, but I have the finished product right here. So this is essentially a 3D PDF of that. So anyone with a PDF viewer can open this. Say, for example, you wanted to collaborate with some people who might not be working in the CAD tool. Maybe they're going to approve of the aesthetics of this design, or maybe some dimensions per se. So what you can do is really cool. You have full access to rotation, spin, pan, all of these different tools, so you can look at your actual part. If you wanted to see, oh, hey, what does this look like on the back? Maybe this looks better in a different color. You can make note of that to whoever. Also, there's a full model tree. If you go here on the left-hand side, one of my favorite things about this tool is there's a full model tree that shows you essentially the same thing you're going to see in Inventor. So your top-level assembly and things underneath that. Say, for example, you wanted to zoom in. It's like, oh, what is this particular part? Well, you can change the highlight color to something really noticeable. Let's go for pink, which is, I know, Jorge's favorite color. We're going to go ahead and select, this top cabinet subassembly. It'll highlight everything of that subassembly, all of those components in that color, so you can kind of see what they are. Another really cool thing is you can turn components completely off. So say, for example, you uncheck this, visibility of that component is completely off. Say, for example, you want to see whatever's deeper in here. You can start turning off some larger assemblies and see, oh, maybe we don't need to worry about what this looks like because this assembly is covering it, or that assembly is covering it. That's another thing. Anyone with a PDF reader can read this. You don't necessarily have to have Acrobat Reader. You can read things like this in your Chrome in your Chrome PDF reader as well. For those of you who don't necessarily have a full reader, but most of these are free. Just don't have the capabilities of doing some of the other things. You can also export this if you wanted to send it to a Word document. It obviously doesn't have the full rotational features that you do here. And whatnot, but it's all pretty good from there. So that's one thing that you'll learn in the Inventor update training, as well as a lot of other things. I think shape generators in there, that's a really big thing. That's not a topic we can necessarily cover, the encompassing of it, in 30 minutes. So definitely, if that's something you work on in your entire workflow, definitely beneficial to you. All right. I was going to cover this too for another update. One of my favorite things in AutoCAD 2017 is PDF import. I'll go through this really quickly. This is a PDF underlay, so this isn't geometry in AutoCAD per se. So you can't necessarily edit this, you can't do whatever. But in 2017, you can actually import this as geometry, edit it as you want, and do whatever. So I'll go ahead and show that real quickly. I know we're a little short on time because of that technical difficulty, but we'll run through this real quick. So easily as typing the command PDF import, you can select the PDF underlay. So I'll select this guy right here. Then what it's going to do is you're going to select your area of import. So I'll go ahead and select this because I only want this view. I don't need the whole thing. Keep detach or unload PDF underlay. I'm going to go ahead and unload it so everything else goes away. And it brought this all in. Cool thing about this is it brings everything in with layer data, which is awesome. So you can go ahead and even turn off certain layers. Say, for example, you don't want the dimensions there. You want to redimension this yourself. Maybe you want to do it at a different scale. You can turn all that off, and all of this is geometry. You can delete, you can edit, you can do whatever you need to. If you want to see all of this, I actually did the AVA for this. It's on our YouTube channel. And there's a lot more cool things you can do, especially with multi-page PDFs. With that, I think we're going to go back to Jorge. He's going to take back over for one more short demo, and then we're going to go ahead and keep moving on.
All right.
Use that, actually.
This is all tailored. It's all tailored, and we'll be able to actually show you exactly how you use it in your environment, right? And one of the big key things here is one that I'm going to go over right now is Vault Pro for administrators. We do offer the services to be able to implement Vault on your own, but another thing you can do is, we offer services so we can do it with you, or you can do it on your own, of course. There are books out there to be able to do that if you'd like. We prefer to, do it with you when all possible, because we have had many years and many different vaults that we've implemented in different fashions over the last, I want to say a few years, but I think 10 years is more than just a few. And one of the things I'll kind of poke here and kind of give you a little glimpse at is, when you're trying to set up your Vault Professional, maybe you want to do part numbering schemes. So you have the ability to do that inside of Vault by going to your tools and administration. And under behaviors, we have the ability to say, well, let's define a brand new numbering scheme. You see, I've already created some on my own. You can create them for items, for files, for change orders as well, and be able to describe what this looks like. So I'll just say new part number, for example, right now. And then in here we can start to say things like, well, maybe it's fixed text at first, maybe because it's a standard parts or something like that. Tell it what that first affixed text is. Being able to say, well, maybe the next one is going to be a predefined list instead, or maybe you say what type it is. Maybe 00 is bolts, for example. Maybe 01 is washers, nuts, and so forth. To be able to identify these parts much more easily, right? Add these as defaults because they're the most common ones you use. Maybe you want separation between these with dashes or underscores and things like that, or period. So we can do all of that inside of here with this part numbering scheme. So we would show you how you do this, give you some tips and tricks, what it's going to look like. And it doesn't stop there, right? There's so much more we can do in here. For example, we can actually create life cycles to be able to say, well, I want to be able to have everybody create things in work in progress, and I want them to not be able to change it from work in progress to approve right away. Or maybe I'll only allow certain people to do that. Or maybe only certain people can read and modify this, certain groups. So we would give you some best practices on, what we see people do today. Give you some recommendations. Some people, for example, want to add more security. So, for example, we don't typically say, give security to specific people, but instead groups, because this way it's a lot easier to manage. So those are the types of things that we would actually cover in a class like Vault Professional for administrators, so that you know how to set up, or maybe you already have it implemented, but you want to gain a little more control over making changes to it and things like that. So we can definitely cover those types of things also in this class. I think that's probably the most important thing, really. Once you have it implemented, you might need to make a few more changes, adjustments, add people, groups and things like that to this. So, we would teach you how to do that in this comprehensive class.
Definitely, and it's definitely something that a lot of people have asked for in AVA. Like I want to learn Vault Professional stuff for the administrative level. There's so many capabilities in Vault Pro that there's no way we could share it in 30 minutes. It would be like a 4-hour, 5-hour AVA at least.
At least.
We can definitely show little tidbits of things every once in a while, but definitely if you want to learn all of it or exactly tailored to your particular business, Vault Pro for Administrators class probably the best bet for you.
Right. And again, it doesn't stop there, right? We have a long list. I think Nigel shared the link earlier on in the chat, so if you're interested, please take a look at that. In summary, we looked at, how to enable you to never stop learning, right? So that you can use the virtual academy that we've put on weekly every Thursday. And, think of those as live training sessions. We try and think of it as more than just a YouTube video because it's live. You can ask questions, and the topics definitely revolve around all the different products in the product design collection.
And you can even ask us for certain topics to do.
Right.
Not necessarily something you have access to when you're watching someone on a recording.
Yeah. The Autodesk Design Academy, Nigel showed that it's the self-paced training. It's a step above the tutorials, I would say.
I think so.
The Inventor tutorials does have some videos in there. This is all videos. It even gives you a rough idea of how long it would take. So if you get a new user, even if you're going to send them to Essentials training, I would say, hey, jump on that. That way when you come in, you have more directed questions perhaps of how something exactly works or why.
Definitely, and it allows you to choose at what kind of learning level you are. Maybe you've been using Inventor for 6 months, but you don't necessarily know how to use some of the more advanced tools. it does give you that ability to kind of skip all of those basic sketching, feature creating things and going straight to something like that.
Right. And then lastly, the KETIV course catalog. It's a tailored training class to your company's needs, where it could be a one-day lecture class or a two-day hands-on. We try to keep it as basic as possible so that you can decide easily if you'd like to take it or not.
Yep.
If you want more information on training for that, it's pretty fixed pricing as well. So I think we really try and giving you all the options for all the different styles of learning.
And this isn't it. There's like considerably more options that you have too for learning, whether or not it's different YouTube channels or even like if you want to go old school and buy a book, things like that are available to you for sure. So with that, I think we're going to jump into Q&A. We do have a couple of questions. I know a lot of things in the questions panel I'm looking at are your audio's down or your audio's back. So we'll skip those for sure. So the first question came from Andy Johnson. Is the Autodesk Academy only for the most current software, i.e. Inventor 2017? I think I can take that one. For the most part, yes. Predominantly what is on the Design Academy is for 2017 versions of the software. I know that things like Inventor presentation have changed considerably since last year, or 2016. So I know that those classes are actually part of the 2017 Inventor stuff.
Yeah, there are still a lot of topics though that are still very relevant.
Definitely, they're applicable for all years.
And I think we try and also mention when it's new. We'll say this changed a little bit from before it was this or that.
Mm-hmm.
I know when we did constraints, I talked about joints being a new one, and constraints being still available, of course, but joints being a new one for sure.
For sure, and things like things like all of the new capabilities, such as like some AnyCAD stuff, among other stuff that they're talking about by doing some design shares like we did last week. That's all new, so that's only going to be applicable to 2017. But I mean, if you're on maintenance or you have current subscription, you're free to use it. So that's one. The second one is, looks like here, how much are these training classes? And that one is from Rick.
Yeah, so there's a few different options. So the Virtual Academy is free, Design Academy is free.
Yep.
The course catalog one-day lecture is $19.95, and it covers up to 5 people within your company. So it's not per person. So we think that's better than just saying let's just throw a custom class out there or just a per person. We'll do it for up to 5 people, and there is an additional fee for people after that.
Definitely.
And if you want a 2-day, then it's $39.90, basically $19.95 times 2. Where it's completely hands-on. We have our own data sets and resources that we use, such as Design Academy, as a matter of fact, where we'll point you in the right direction so that you're not having to spend time poking around. And a lot of times we do poke around, right? And we do a lot of that. So we can definitely point you in the right direction, so you don't necessarily have to get a book every time either.
Definitely, and not all of these classes in the course catalog are necessarily static. So there is flexibility involved, and you can talk to your account manager about that, or if you don't know who that is, you can email us at questions, and we'll be more than happy to get you to the right person. Say, for example, you wanted to learn about some routed systems, but didn't necessarily need some cable harness stuff. We can definitely tailor the class to your needs if you needed certain things in tube and pipe, something that's not necessarily covered in the class that you might want to do. We can definitely cater to those needs as well.
Yeah, we can always talk about those needs, and it just depends on what what it is you'd like to cover exactly.
Yep. And then the last one, it looks like here, is about the PDF import. Does this work with raster images only? So yeah. So it only works with vector data. It doesn't necessarily work with raster images. Those create PNGs. If you want to know more about that, it's all covered in that lesson on the YouTube channel. So with that, I think that's it for questions. Thank you all for sticking around even through some of those technical difficulties. Happens every once in a while. Join us next week. We're going to do some AutoCAD electrical stuff with some, I believe, some electrical panels, I think is what Grayson's doing.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so if definitely that's something you currently using, you want to know more about, or if it's something completely new you want to learn about, join us for that. So with that, I think...
yeah, that's it.
Definitely, and just want to leave you with this. With our new motto, never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to come around and stop learning.